It's time for the Albion Mag Radio Show. Well, a very good morning and a warm welcome. We're back after our summer hiatus. It's Dean Kilford and Leon Cox with the Albion Mag Radio Show. A very good morning.
Morning.
Oh, here we are, Leon.
We are.
The summer break, have you been in pre-season training?
Out of condition, slightly overweight, the usual. Being made to run up and down the terraces, throwing up. The works.
Well, we've you heard our new title jingle, which is thanks. Of
Did
course.
That without moving your lips?
I did.
That's amazing.
A big thanks to Jalapeno Records, our partners, Brighton record label. So big shout out to them. Check out their music, jalapenorecords.com. There we are, that's their plan.
Do that.
Happy days. Of course, you can get involved with us social media, Twitter, Facebook, at TAM Radio Show. We've got this whole show planned out. We've got far too much planned out, to be honest. But
why? What's happened?
Who knows what's happening? Oh, pre-season.
Nothing.
Loads of stuff. But we've got to just remark, we've just bumped into the women's team.
Yeah. Coincidentally, they're getting ready for their... I assume I hope very much it's an open top bus they're getting on for Pride. Because otherwise...
to be dressed up very much, if not.
For an open top bus. They're going to be, I guess trundling through the town and waving at folks. And there were inflatable seagulls and... Glitter, the works.
The works. Which leads me on to my first point, which wasn't going to be the first point, but it links so nice. It is Pride, of course, and the barrage of unnecessary abuse the club has got on the basis of changing the badge to having the rainbow flag behind the club emblem. You've retweeted this.
I did, yeah. We Are Brighton posted about it. And I was sufficiently in agreement with them to retweet. It has been acknowledged that since we've signed players particularly from certain territories where there's higher cases of fundamental religion and things like that, particularly places like South Africa and Iran, a lot of people who have followed our new signings to the club are now shocked and appalled to see that our club is actually supporting of LGBTQ issues and diversity. And We Are Brighton's response was basically, if you don't like it, don't support the club.
Well, this is the downside, surely, of... some old hardcore Brighton fans talk about this, is that you hop back to the old days, which weren't necessarily the good old days, but rose tinted glasses and all, but the new breed of supporter that we now get by process of being in the Premier League, by process of the players that now come to the club. This is an unfortunate supper. I don't want to read any of the quotes directly because I don't want to give them the airtime or basically inflame any further unnecessary. But is that the downside with being the Premier League club?
Well, obviously there's no doubt that there is an element with some of the signings that we're making. I'd say it's lower down the consideration, the list of considerations. But when you think about Juventus signing Ronaldo and making his fee back in the first week with shirt sales, there's no doubt that it behooves the club to make itself known as a Premier League outfit to territories where there might be a market for replica shirts and other merchandise and whatever else. But I suppose, there's a downside that comes with that, which is that there may be communities there who are more apt to be vocal about their displeasure at certain ways of existing.
Yes, very well put. And we'll leave that there. I think we'll leave that there. That's all we need to say about that one, really. We'll move on with the show. So we've got, obviously, pre-season to talk about. We want to touch upon the World Cup. We want to touch about signings galore. One of the most active Premier League teams in the window this summer. Let's start with last night, because I think that, you were there. I've seen the highlights this morning. First home game. It's a pre-season friendly. A nice positive result, which I know results don't matter in pre-season, but what was the performance like for you? How do you feel having watched the team shaping up ahead of the season?
It was decent. I think we had the lion's share of the game. We looked in control for the most part. I don't think, despite what I think Bruno said before the game about treating it like a cup final, I didn't really get the impression that the players really felt like it was a cup final. And I would have been surprised if they did, to be honest. It's not even as big a game as, say, the Community Shield, which is now kind of treated as a supplemental trophy.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a lot of kudos that goes on with it. It's called kind of like a Super Cup deal in the modern era. But playing Nantes in your final, a mid-table French league side in your final friendly. Obviously, it had been an upper echelon Portuguese side who we were meant to play, but they've got all sorts of issues apparently. So we ended up playing Nantes. Thank you to Nantes for stepping in and playing us and all that. And obviously not a bad side at all. Probably similar standard to us, but it wasn't. There wasn't a huge sense of the event about it. I'm not saying that the atmosphere was actually, good for a friendly. It was there was quite a lot of noise actually from the North Stand in particular. They had a good to and fro of left side and right side going on, and a few banters with the non-existent Nantes fans about we can't, you're not singing anymore, that kind of thing. But yeah, it was an okay performance. It was good. It was the first time we scored twice in all of pre-season.
Yes.
But we still can't keep a clean sheet.
Well, scoring... So if we go back 12 months, we didn't score... Well, actually, no, clean sheets were the matter of last pre-season. If I remember, Andy, we kept clean sheets in... I think we kept clean sheets in every friendly last... All but one, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. But, we didn't have our annual routine drubbing of Crawley this season, for instance. We didn't arrange that one, which is the one I've been to the last couple or 3 years, just because it was always, it's a nice little trip up the road, watch you score 5 or 6 goals or whatever.
See a few players in.
So not obviously a bit more of a workout than Crawley, but yeah, I thought it looked like a continuation of last season, but there is no doubt that as Bruno said in interviews, that we are going to be expected, the players off the ball are going to be expected to press more this season. I think we're going to be more proactive, both offensively and defensively, in terms of harrying opposition players to make a mistake and get the ball back. And
That's
actually,
how the second goal came about,
exactly,
purely because of that.
Yeah, they got themselves into a bit of a pickle, but we were there to pounce on it, which I don't think we'd really been in many cases. I think we were so concerned with keeping shape last season that we weren't always willing to commit to a press, and also perhaps we just weren't physically prepared to it. Bruno's talking about the fact that he and the boys have actually been shocked by the level of demand that's been put on them in pre-season.
There's a new fitness coach, isn't there?
Right.
Signed in the summer.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain at the end of last season there was a switch.
Well, perhaps they were brought in with a view to stepping everything up a level in terms of getting the players to be able to commit to the press and still get back into shape, which is obviously, that's the big battle, isn't it? And I suspect Bruno again alluded to this, the fact that maybe the pre-season results and performances haven't been quite as good as we might have hoped or expected, but that's partly because that they are being worked very, very hard in training and expected to play a slightly different way, and it's leading to certain situations. And maybe once the season starts and as the season goes on, this will all pay dividends, I'm sure. I trust in Chris to have made the right decision in this.
Well, absolutely. In Chris we trust.
Yeah, and I think if there was an issue last season at times, it was that we were being a bit passive in games, and as well as we did and as well as we played at times, I think there definitely were games for me where we could have gone a bit further towards pressuring the opposition into mistakes and keeping the pressure on when we were like 1-0 up in certain games and things like that. So I think the intention is to improve on that stuff this season. That could net, an extra however many points it takes to get us into mid-table safety, proper safety this season. Well,
and also looking at the teams coming up, you've got Wolves and Fulham, who are very much of that oppressive regimes.
No, they're a lovely club, actually, both of them.
Yes, but very much pressing. They're very much play quick, counter-attacking football, and so the style of two of the three teams that have come up certainly means, and as you've seen more teams adapt into this, it seems to be the new three at the centre back as we go through the different formations, different styles throughout the course of footballing history, this is the current style, which is to press. And I do feel if you don't adapt and bring in that style, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a question regarding formation, in the sense that Chris Hughton is obviously a very much a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1 man, and we signed Balogun, who played better in the World Cup as part of a 3 centre halves.
Yeah.
Lewis Dunk, possibly one of the reasons he wasn't picked, to bang on that old drum, is the fact that he's used to playing as part of a 2, and Gareth Southgate would rather play Kyle Walker out of position, or even Calamity Phil Jones.
Well, we'll save the World Cup bit for later on. But yes, I get your point. Yeah, he's not used to playing as a 3.
We only dabbled with the 3 at the back once, I think, last season, maybe against Chelsea.
It was Chelsea, wasn't it? Chelsea,
yeah. And we played well with it, but Chelsea were just better than us. And whether we'll see it again, I don't know. I think there was some speculation among me and my pals that maybe this season would be we'd be going to more of a conventional 2 up front, because we've signed more strikers. But then where does that leave Gross as the link man?
Well, that's the thing. Well, I was looking at Andone, who I was reading all the reports about him. He is someone that prefers to play up front on his own.
Yeah.
He got paired with Lopez from Arsenal last season. So they played full foot, and he didn't adapt to it well, and then ended up not playing in the team. Obviously, we tried to sign him last summer. So he's an out-and-out solo one-man up-front striker.
Yeah.
He likes to bring in other players. Murray, obviously, that's how he's played for, not necessarily the majority of the group, but certainly in recent years. Hemed, again, very similar player, hold-up player, brings others into the game. The one question, Locadia, we still don't know. I don't think we've seen enough of him yet to know, because for me, whenever we've seen him, he's always been out of position in behind a striker, which doesn't seem to suit him.
Yeah, or
yet.
he's only made brief cameos, and as we know from the likes of Davy Prupper last season, it takes a while. My fear is always, and it's the same this season, if players, I've had new signings, whether it's Bissouma or Jahanbakhsh or whoever, don't immediately start setting the place on fire, you're going to have people on their backs saying, flop signings or whatever. But we know it takes a while to get the measure of the difference in pace and whatever else that.
So going back, we'll go into the signings in a second, but we'll go back to the pre-season results. Just trying to keep this condensed in a nice. So obviously we had a 1-0 win over Nice, behind closed doors friendly in midweek. The two teams and the players that played, I know we had 2 separate teams, one either half of the Nice game, but Andy Naylor alluded to it. Normally your last pre-season game, you're playing with the team that is likely to be leading the line on the opening game of the season. So obviously there's positives and negatives. Only one of the new signings involved in the starting lineup, Bernardo.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the Nice game, it was only a few days earlier, obviously Bissouma started, and Jahanbakhsh, I don't know how you say it, and Andone started, all 3 of them. Do you think they're going to come straight into the team? Do you think, I don't know.
Well, it looks like Andone possibly isn't going to be fit. It seems that at least 3 of our 4 strikers are carrying at least niggles, if not knocks. Although Houghton's saying that Murray will be available, although he came off after 15 minutes last night, and Hemed scored, as he does when he gets a chance. So I think, the question regarding the new signings is, I think Bernardo is a shoe-in at left back. I thought he was impressive last night. He's big for a full-back, but he's also quick. He makes forward runs. He also made at least one absolutely stellar tackle, which is always a good sign for a full-back.
Get that as much,
no, not as much, but he absolutely robbed somebody, a wide player of the ball, and came away with it at his feet and standing. Looked very good indeed. So obviously, up against more challenging opposition, he might find it harder, but he's played in Germany. He's probably played against the likes of Bayern Munich. So I think he looks to be a good signing. Don't know where it leaves Marcus Suttner now, 3rd choice, and decent player, but I'm not sure how he's going to get into the team.
We'll touch on that, because maybe actually no, this link it. having this bigger squad now, because the squad is arguably, we've said last season we may not have the best players in the league. Well, we don't have the best players in the league, but we've got arguably a good 2 players for every position. Yeah, arguably,
where there isn't a massive drop off in quality between first choice and second choice. So now in
certain positions there's now 3.
Yeah.
Or for that solo striker position, there's 4.
Yeah.
Now with the pressing style, which notoriously is draining on players, we've Bruno alluded to it. The pre-season training is harder,
especially when you're 37.
Maybe that squad needs to be bigger in order to cope with that new style of play. So maybe we will see a lot more changes, because I think Houghton's historically a manager that likes to have a settled team.
Yeah.
But I think in this, are we moving towards
rotation,
baseball, basketball, but where you do have a different lineup week in, week out,
or ice hockey where you have several in the same.
Yeah. But so is that where?
Maybe so. Maybe so. Maybe that's something that even at nearly 60, Chris Houghton's kind of adapting to the concept that the way when he was playing, it was very much like you had a core 11, maybe with 1 or 2 changes a week, if that, and like the Tottenham side that he played in for so many years was very stable. It didn't change a lot. And I suppose as much as he is clearly a modern and free-thinking man, I think you adapt to certain kinds of behaviours that you understand, and maybe this is an adaptation of his to say we can't really get away with. I think he might look at although we ended up finishing okay in the league, perhaps the data that they got back regarding the players was showing that there was a drop off in terms of miles covered or the top speeds they're hitting or whatever,
or at certain minutes maybe players losing
or concentration as well. And so maybe he's looking at a more of an adaptive, flexible, free flowing kind of squad, which I like, because I like seeing more of the players. I mean, I think you've got to have a certain amount of stability. Players need to know where they stand, but I think there's also the balancing act, the juggle of keeping everyone happy. We've signed these players. We've got another central midfielder who people are speaking very highly of in Yves Bissouma. Where does that leave Baram Kyle? And he's a player who seems to love the club, seems to want to stay, but if he's not getting any football, if he was knocked to 4th choice centre mid and Prupper and Stevens stay injury free and we don't sell them, then you've got the problem of keeping these players who are basically, compared to what we used to have 15 years ago, world-class footballers by comparison. And now we're saying, well, you can't really get in the team. We're selling. We're now at the point.
But is that not progression? Is that not?
Oh, it totally is.
It's okay. We've been, at a certain level. We're going to buy these players that are going to take us to and the next level. I think realistically, next level is, and I don't like it, but Stoke of the previous, because Stoke were always a team you knew were going to finish somewhere between 8th and 13th. They're never going to go down. They're going to be worried in the relegation until last season. Yeah. But for, I don't know, it was 10, 12 years, they were a solid Premier League team.
Yeah, I think absolutely. The way we're looking to build, spending money, it looks like we are very much aiming to consolidate and improve on what we did last season. In fact,
I think it is. It's looking to improve. It's not even consolidating, because we'll touch upon it, because I've got the spending table and it makes really interesting reading.
It's actually terrifying
when you think back.
Well, it's genuinely mind-boggling to anyone. We were doing this conversation must happen between Brighton fans every week, but we were looking. We brought on a player as a substitute last night who was our record signings, 70 million euros or thereabouts estimated, whatever, as a right-sided attacking player, and we could remember when we signed Gary Hart for a few grand and some tracksuits.
Yeah,
and it genuinely is. It genuinely is mind-boggling, and we will never get over it. And that is why this is also magic,
And all it's. What can I ask you? When's reality hit? Has reality hit? Because I know we've had a season, but I feel last season just sort of flew by. When I think back to the past 12 months. Did that really happen? I think the pinnacle of it, obviously the Man United
beat Man United,
was sort of it's almost like, okay, that's the end of the dream now.
Now this is where we are.
Now we're, but hold on a minute, we're still there.
We have been there before, in the sense that
Yes.
That in the end, as much as we wanted it to be, it wasn't even our best ever season. Like, I know the world has changed, but we have finished 13th in the top flight before. So it's not like this fantasy land hasn't been somewhat achieved before. I know the landscape has changed and whatever.
Is very different back.
But in 1983, we got to a cup final. In 1981 or whichever year it was, we finished 13th. And the dream for me now, as I keep saying, like, if we could finish 12th this season, that would be magnificent. Like, that would be our best ever season as a club. And I would definitely, at that point, I think, feel like we are, like, the dream has ended and we have done what we've threatened and promised to do for ever since Tony Bloom took over, which is establish ourselves. That said, as we said at the end of last season, you can never rule out relegation.
No, again, the aim is to finish 17th or higher.
Yeah,
always. But I think for every club, really. I mean, you could
outside maybe the big six.
Yes, but even for those clubs,
it would be a bigger catastrophe for them if they had in the same way that Leicester won the league. You could theoretically have a season where just everything goes wrong for Chelsea, Man United or Liverpool, and they flirt with relegation.
Chelsea were, I think Man City a couple of years ago were.
You do get these anomalies,
but we don't care about them yet.
No,
maybe in a couple of years.
But no, it is still a bit dreamlike. I mean, it is obviously every time you sign another player for like plus 10 million quid, euros, or whatever, it becomes ever so slightly more normal. And the cautious part of me is always thinking about all the other clubs I've watched go to the wall over the 30 years that I've been watching football, and all the ones that were mismanaged and run to the ground. And
that's not good. This club is not run that way.
No, I know that, but it just rings those alarm bells.
Because of the TV money that's come in and all the clubs, we already know the clubs have a very high proportion of millions to spend.
Yes.
So it's interesting reading that not many clubs have spent that much money. I mean, in terms of net spend, I was surprised because we've seen all these big signings, but that Brighton are 5th in that table of net spend. So that's not the total amount, but so these sums are done with actual transfer guaranteed fees, no agent fees, no add-ons. So £56.4 million is the exact amount of money that Brighton have spent, and we've received 4.8 million, so £51.6 million net spend, which is literally only 0.2 million behind Man United. And then the 3 other clubs above us, Arsenal, West Ham, who have been on a big spending spree, and unsurprisingly Liverpool, who have just gone
they're backing Jurgen Klopp.
Absolutely.
Big style. Yeah. That is insane. I can't quite believe that. It'll be interesting to see what that is at the end of the transfer window, because we've done our business early. I think that's probably a bit skewed at this point, isn't it?
It is what it is.
No, sure. But
I reckon there will be a couple of players on the other way out. We'll speak about players going out in a minute, but I just thought of a tweet from the Ibrox fans club about Goldson,
right,
apologising for stealing Goldson for only 3 million.
Yeah,
which is absolutely right.
Yeah.
He had a blinder in the UEFA Cup.
Did he? Good for him.
Wednesday night. Yes.
I'm no fan of Gerrard's, but I'm a fan of Connor's, and I wish him all the best.
I think he's going to rock that and come. It could be one of those where he returns a better player in a couple of years, and there must be a buyback clause or something with a player that good.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more like clubs that really need top quality centre halves, like Manchester United, and
Well, anyway, we'll talk about Brighton's experts. So this is ridiculous. When you think it's more than Chelsea, more than Man City, more than Burnley, Tottenham and Palace haven't signed a player yet.
No.
Leicester have spent more money than us, but they've received more money because of Mahrez. That's just a one-player deal. But then you look at something like Newcastle. There are a lot of teams that haven't strengthened, and you'd like to think that there's that old adage: is keeping what you've got a safe bet because you know what you're working with, or is going out to improve. There's the positives and negatives where it's going to take time to settle, which could lose you a few points in the interim, but overall potentially the payoff is better.
Another thing that's unusual is how little talk there's been about selling players.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of rumblings about Knockaert. With signing Jahan Bash. There's been a couple of the usual rumblings about Dunk, but the argument with him is who can actually afford to buy him. Only the big six. Would they actually want him? Would he go to Everton or West Ham? Would he consider that an improvement? He's just signed a new long contract, so that seems to have gone quiet. Nobody seems to be in for Stevens or Proper, or even nobody's talked about signing Gross. I know they're all under contract, and that makes them expensive players to buy right now. But you would, a few years ago, again, you would have just thought, rather than us spending 50-something million quid on improving the squad, you would think, well, we're going to have to recoup some of that. Or as recently as Ulloa, we had to sell somebody for a good chunk of money before we could even start considering bringing anybody in, that when we were in the Championship. I mean, again, for us, the landscape has completely changed. I also get the impression, and again, I realise there's a lot of PR involved in this and possibly some spin, but I get the impression that it's a happy squad. I don't get the feeling that there are too many players who are desperate to get away from being part of Brighton and Hove Albion. I mean, who knows? People have their own thoughts and situations, but I think that counts for a lot. It sounds like...
Well, you know when there's an unhappy squad because there are all kinds of leaks from unnamed sources from within the club that come out, and there isn't any of that.
Not at the moment, no.
And it's been a bit of a weird transfer window because of the World Cup, because of the time. It kind of feels like we haven't really had a transfer window, and all the way through it, Brighton have very cheekily gone about just picking up a few little gems along the way, and everyone's sort of stood back and been watching the World Cup and not realised that they've got a season to prepare for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a strange one. Anyway, I think it's time to play our first tune from our friends at Jalapeno Records. If you do want to get involved with us on the show, remember Twitter, Facebook at TAM Radio Show. If you want to have your say, we'd love to hear from you. Right now, we're going to play a tune from our friends, the Allergies. This is You've Got Power. That was the Allergies. You've got power. You're listening to the Albion Mag radio show on 1BTN, available online, DAB digital and 101.4 FM. Dean Kilford, Leon Cox in the studio. We've been talking a bit about pre-season, a bit about transfers. One other small event that happened over the summer, which we've got to talk about, is the World Cup. But before I do that, I just want to mention that the 1BTN Pride Party, of course, Brighton Pride here today, is from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. at the Fortune of War on Brighton Beach. It's free entry. 1BTN have donated the fee to Brighton Pride for that. It's going to be an all-star lineup. It's going to be awesome. For more info, check out the 1BTN Facebook page. There we are.
That sounds good.
It does sound good.
Sounds a bit hectic for me.
Well, but you've got your glitter on and your...
Yeah.
So Leon is almost the antithesis.
I know. I wore a black T-shirt.
I've gone all colourful. It's,
looks like I'm not in protest. It was just the thing.
First thing that
came to hand.
It's all right. Going back, so the World Cup. Slightly apprehensive going into it. I think when we left the air a few
for all sorts of
months
reasons
ago, and I don't remember such a good tournament since probably '96.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was a fabulous tournament. There seemed to be a really good spirit among the people of Russia hosting the event and the fans. I'm sure some stuff went on some places that was less savoury, but it seems to have been so minor. I think the Russian element had been kind of told that they would have to be on their best behaviour, so none of the horrific scenes that we envisaged came to pass, as far as we know. And the actual football was just a cracking tournament, like with all sorts of insanely good games and goals and surprise results and shocks and some hilarious moments as well, with Neymar rolling about and the Iranian trying to take the throw in with the somersault, and of course, from a parochial point of view, England outperformed expectations, and in the end a semi-final defeat was almost disappointing.
Well, that's it, but it's not necessarily the fact that we got semi-final, which was by all, it just was against belief and against any expectations going into the tournament. It was just the fact, for me, it reinvigorated my passion for international football.
Oh yeah,
and fell in love with watching the England team again.
Yeah,
you saw that it was like a club. It was like, watching it was like you could, the players weren't in this sort of superstar kind of way where they didn't have time. They were normal people.
That culture seems to have gone.
Yeah.
And certainly maybe not around certain players like Neymar, and probably Ronaldo, although he actually seems to be a decent bloke underneath all the preening. But yeah, the England club mentality. I think Southgate, obviously I'm still critical of him. I'm supposed to hate him because he used to play for Palace and he didn't pick Lewis Dunk, but he absolutely won the nation over, and that was not just about the way he conducted himself, but also that the fact that he brought all these mostly young players together and got them behaving like normal people. Again, there's PR involved. There's definitely a lot of this stuff is a conscious decision as to how you project yourself to the media, but
that's part of the battle that England managers have struggled in the past, is getting the media on side, and he did that. Yeah,
absolutely. And yes, I haven't felt as connected to the England team since 2006 was the last tournament where I actually really still felt fully behind England. That was really the death of it for some time, and I wasn't sure I'd ever love again, Dean, but
don't say that. That's no, I get it. We've spoken about this many times on this show, that international football is not hadn't been something that I'd been that bothered about.
No. And
watching.
I think the move to this sort of semi-competitive international league thing is probably a good idea, which does away with the idea of completely meaningless friendlies.
Now we just have to play Croatia twice again. Spain.
There is that, but I think it might add a little frisson to it, and also I think after this World Cup, I'm hoping from my point of view, normally at this point we're so into the Premier League and the Albion that first international break and the second one and the third one is like, oh, here we go again. But maybe now we're actually looking forward to seeing England play, see if they can improve on where they were. It'd be interesting to see them playing with an actually fit Harry Kane for if that happens.
These are a couple of things I've got a couple of questions written down based on the World Cup. Not that, in hindsight, would Lewis Dunk or Glenn Murray have made a difference to that squad?
Yes, I think
both of them, or one, or
I think he should have taken. The fact that Phil Jones played in the bronze medal match was just
pointless game. Let me just have a rant about how pointless.
Nobody likes it, but once you're there, like I know, for instance, Sweden finished third in '94, and they still consider finishing third in the World Cup because they won that bronze medal match 4-0 against Bulgaria. That may be their greatest ever. They might win it sometime.
Although they did lose in the final back in '58.
Well, okay.
Yeah, they lost to Brazil in the final.
That's a very good point. My sources, bad info from my sources. Some teams who have played in the third place playoff do consider it. It was. I think if you get that official third place, it probably feels like it means a little bit more. Whereas the 2 times England have done it, we've lost and not come out of it very well. But regardless of that, Jones was shambles against Hazard, and I have no idea why he was in the squad ahead of Lewis Dunk. So, would it have made a difference to how far we got in the tournament? No, probably not. That said, I think the idea of him taking a different kind of striker, I think a lot of people thought that maybe when he was throwing on Jamie Vardy and the likes to kind of Rashford, it wasn't really making the kind of difference, the old cliche of plan B. Actually, I think probably if you were going to take one, I know it might sound hilarious, but Andy Carroll or even Crouch, getting the old big man who's good in the air in the box, just to give you that option. And I know it is an hoary old cliche, but it's worked in the past for not just for England but for other teams too. So I don't think Glenn Murray was ever necessarily a likelihood, but I don't see why. Jones and Dunk are almost the same age. We looked this up last night. And it still feels like Dunk's one for the future, whereas Jones feels like he's kind of, unless he has...
Phil Jones was someone built with promise when he was Blackburn player, played in midfield originally, then slowly worked back to centre-back. And I think his first season, if I remember, at Man United, he had a good season, and then since then I think it was injury, or he's never recovered. No,
he doesn't look like a top tier centre half to me. No. Whereas Lewis Dunk still looks like he's improving, and he's infinitely more mobile. He's sharper.
He can pass the ball, which is one of the key. So as we saw, I don't want to take away anything, but as we saw with Walker playing in that out of position centre.
Yes, there was some
back three. He made some rash decisions.
Yes,
which he's got the pace to recover, which he did. On occasion, but
there were times when we were saying, like, why is as good a footballer as he is and as fast as he is, why are they playing a player out of position there when they could have played?
Although if Dunk had played and Walker had played, then there'd have been no Trippier, who was arguably our best. Anyway, we were just from a Brighton perspective. Obviously, I was going to ask you your highlight. Can you pick one highlight?
It's hard to go much further than winning the... Do you mean from an England point of view?
From just your point of view?
The whole World Cup.
An England one or a whole World Cup?
Well, obviously winning the penalty shootout in a World Cup was pretty special and quite surreal. Going 1-0 up in the semi-final was... unfortunately, it turned out not to be. But... but no, I think it's more like there were so many good goals throughout the tournament across the board that there was just a real sense of carnival about it. Like the World Cups you grew up watching, and you just couldn't believe some of the, because back then you didn't know all the players and whatever. And this is going to sound like a weird thing, but I know one of the issues in recent years has been, obviously from a marketing point of view, Adidas always has to come out with a new ball. And famously, the balls that they've come out with in the last couple or 3 World Cups have been flawed in that they've moved around in the air and behaved erratically. The ball this time, which is called the Telstar, which is a hark back to the iconic 1970 football with the old panels, the black and white panels. And apart from it seemed to lack durability early in the tournament, there were a couple of burst ones.
Yes.
After that, the ball was sublime, and I genuinely think that added a lot to the tournament because so many of the shots were just so plumb, so pristinely struck.
That Chirashev one outside of the first game, first game of the tournament.
Yes, the Nacho one, and there's just so many pure hits, and the passing as well. You know, it aided the whole tournament, I think. And I know it's a thing that I don't think people. It comes up once every 4 years. Like, here's a new ball. It's rounder, it's lighter, or whatever they say.
Yeah.
And it normally isn't lighter because there's a regulation weight, but there's normally things they've done to the aerodynamics of it or the stitching. But this time it seemed that Adidas really nailed it. And some people might think this is insane, but I genuinely think it contributed.
There you go. So the highlight of the World Cup was the ball.
Yeah,
perfect. Although I wasn't expecting that answer.
They'll still never beat the Adidas Tango as a design classic for me.
Tango. Oh, this goes back. Anyway, the best team won, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
They that French team, and I hate to say this, but I will give props to my wife Lauren, who correctly picked out France at the start of the tournament, and
not out of a hat.
No,
she selected.
She selected. So we do a competition where we selected one team from each band.
Oh, okay.
And 3 of her 4 teams were in the semi-final, and mine were all out by the last 16.
Yeah. So she's presenting.
She's
with me
presenting for the rest of the season, and I'm
enough.
going home. Yes. So congratulations.
Through gritted teeth.
For me, the highlight was, and this probably is again is the fact that I couldn't wait to watch the games the next day.
Yeah.
I was a little bit footballed out at the end of the season, and I was like, football 2 games, 3 games every day. I thought,
yeah.
I literally couldn't wait to watch, and if I had to work and miss a game for whatever reason,
missed a few.
I would happily watch the highlights later that night. And I love that fact that it actually, from where I felt footballed out, which sounds bizarre in its own way, it was just brilliant every day. And I felt a bit of mourning, a bit of loss once it was over.
Yes.
It was like, I've really enjoyed it.
It's been a bit of a desolate wasteland the last few weeks, but we knew we had
this whole 3 weeks.
Yes.
Whilst pre-season started the day after the World Cup.
Yeah. Actually, there were some, because we started training before the World Cup ended, didn't we?
Well,
and
there was Europa League games taking place.
And Champions League.
On the semi-final days.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And obviously we had 3 players involved, which was actually before the tournament, because I was so despondent about England. I was thinking I'm going to enjoy watching Matty Ryan, Izquierdo, Balogun, just see what he's like. I didn't know I hadn't really clocked that we were signing Jahan Baksh. I didn't really see it around much anyway. So I was thinking, all right, well, I'll support Jose. In the end, he only played like a total of about a game and whatever. But yeah, in the end, it was a real festival. Yeah.
So there we are. That's our thoughts on the World Cup. We've got to go back, of course. It's a Brighton and Hove Albion. We're running out of time. I've just
I know.
Right. So I tell you what. We'll save the rundown for players signed for next week.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We'll save the rundown.
And include it as part of our preview.
Yes. We've sort of touched upon pre-season. We didn't go all the way through. Something concerning that's come up, and it's been noted upon, and people have picked up on social media that they've seen videos of lip reading of the bench are defending. Yeah, I could hear it's the goal we conceded from a corner. Was it against Birmingham, was it? I'm not sure which one it was. May have been Birmingham. But it was, you can actually, because there's no one there, you can hear Houghton and I think Trollope probably talking throughout the highlights of the video. And after we concede the goal from a corner, and he's right, you can hear, I think it's Houghton, but it might be, it's in exchange, and you can hear the words diabolical and shambles quite clearly. Yes.
Yeah, that's a concern. We've conceded a lot of goals. We've been behind in a lot of games. Well, I say we conceded a lot of goals. We haven't. We've conceded one goal a game.
Yeah. But going to the pre-season that we were talking about earlier, the intensity, playing a new style, and I think this is the downside to playing the pressing system, is that we're going to find that we are more open at the back until the players adapt to regrouping into shape as they did so well and so regimentedly last season.
Yes.
There are going to be gaps for teams to exploit.
Yeah, and I think at times that hopefully that won't lead to the crowd turning or thinking that the players aren't trying or whatever. But yes, of course, inevitably, if you push up and you push closer to the opposition with the ball, it's going to leave spaces for the opposition to work with. The idea being, of course, that over the match you'll create yourself more opportunities. So we might be in for some higher scoring games.
Well, that's it. As a fan, you'd much rather see a performance like the game against Chelsea at home, just to pick a random game that we played. Arguably, at that point, was probably one of our best performances of the season, but we were outclassed by a team that was better.
Yes.
Than I was trying to think of an equivocal game where we didn't really go at. I was thinking of the Leicester game for some reason, which was a bit turgid. It wasn't until the end of the game. There wasn't really much in it.
Well, I guess the ones that come back, I'm now having to put my brain back into last season mode. But yes, there were those home games against the likes of Everton and Stoke, I think.
Stoke was the 2-2. That was
okay. Southampton
was definitely one.
Where we felt like we should have been more proactive, and we said it. We said it at the time. I think most of the feedback was that actually if we just kept on doing what we were doing, not sat back and continued to harry them, they didn't seem able to cope with us when we were going at them. Whereas when we sat back and just, did the thing that, we talked always about Houghton being pragmatic and cautious. But it seems like maybe this extra pressing is looking at a way of keeping that, but while also actually trying to maximise your opportunities. It was actually against Portsmouth.
The Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Do you care about pre-season results?
Well, I think it's one of those things where if you win all your pre-season friendlies, you think, oh, that looks good. So if you don't do so well in them, you think, oh, it's a bit worrying. I mean, it's hard not to read something into them. But as I say, it's not like we've been losing them all. And we lost to AFC Wimbledon. Virtually every game's been a mixed side up until the last couple. So that's obviously a factor. Obviously, you're trying things out, new players and whatever. There are circumstances. We played 2 games in a day at one point with different sides, and obviously there's all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't read quite so much into them. But you would be. I think most of us would feel more comfortable going into a new Premier League season having just put all these teams away, even if it was just 2-0 or something. But all these 1-1 draws and games where we've had to equalise late and stuff against lower league opposition does seem slightly concerning. But then it probably won't have much bearing.
The flip side, they're obviously mixed teams of first or reserve or one collective. If we allude back to maybe we don't have a starting 11, maybe we've got a starting 22 that mix and match, or maybe not.
Squad of 25 for the competitive games,
and we're now a scalp. So when we play these friendlies, against AFC Wimbledon, against Portsmouth, obviously dark, but we're now a Premier League team where they're going to try. Yeah. Just a thought.
No, I think there's something in that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. We've got just about 10 minutes left, so we'll quickly move on because we're not just about the first team. We're about Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club. So the women's team.
We just bumped into
them. It was very nice. Nice to see the players. They're looking in jovial spirits, looking very tanned. Of getting back from their training camp in Portugal.
Very nice
ahead of the WSL 1. Their first fixture of the season will be in 2 weeks' time away at Chelsea in the Continental Cup. So the way the season pans out this season is much more regular fixtures, which is far more helpful. But they put 2 away games to start the season, away at Chelsea and away at Tottenham the first 2 weeks in the Continental Cup. So this is a good thing. Home games obviously now at Crawley Town.
Yeah.
So they've released season tickets. Season ticket for that, £45 for an adult.
Yeah. I've had a couple of emails through, and that seems to be a very good deal. Yeah.
Under 21s, over 65s, £35. Under 18s, £30. Under 10s, £10. So even if you went 3 or 4 times a season for the season, that is well worth getting involved in, because the quality and the squad keeps improving. I mean, we don't really have time to go through all of the signings that they've made, but there's some been impressive signings to that squad, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, because this team has been evolving over the course of last season. We've seen, I was chatting to you before we went on air, the squad at the start of last season was added to, I think we signed 6 or 7 players through the course of the season. We've now added another 6 or 7. It's virtually a new squad, and all of these players have played at the top level, have been part of squads that have won the WSL one, have won the cup, have played in the Champions League, have represented their countries at various international levels. So it's going to be exciting.
Without knowing too much about the opposition, and I'd be lying if I said I watched the women's game as much as I watched the men's game, but I have been to internationals and Albion games. My hunch is that the women will do even better in the top flight than the men did for us last season in their top flight.
But they are arguably more of an underdog.
Do you think?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Despite having hope, despite the players they've got, they are, the majority of these teams have been up that level and are very much more settled squads. So I think it's going to be a challenge, but a good challenge, because it's virtually, if you look back 12 months, it's a virtually brand new squad. So they'll
definitely be grateful for all the support they get.
Absolutely. I just wanted to give a shout out to Chloe Peplow, who is representing the England under-20s at the World Cup, which starts tomorrow. They're playing North Korea at 3:30 p.m. And also Alicia Russo. She was playing for the Albion in the Spring Series last spring back before leaving to study in America. She's got a scholarship, and she's in the starting as well.
Nice.
Good for them. Under-23s, they started their pre-season, lost 2-1 to Fulham on Tuesday night. They've also been invited to the Premier League International Cup, which is an honour for them. There are only 12 Premier League clubs invited to that. They've been drawn with Everton, Benfica and Bayern Munich. And bizarrely, they're at home all 3 games in that group.
That's odd. How does that work?
I've no idea.
Okay.
If I'm honest, but they're at home for all 3 games. But this is quite exciting. They'll be the first ever team to play at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. On Monday the 27th of August, the first test event at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Tottenham were the first team to play at the Amex.
Reciprocal, so that's nice. Bit of synergy there. They're also in action on Tuesday nights, Culver Road against Haywards Heath Town in the Sussex Shield. So that big competition, the Sussex Shield, it's a
trophy.
It's a trophy, exactly. So they'll be playing in that one as well. I always love it. A trialist scored against
a trialist.
A trialist. He scores a lot of goals in pre-season.
I know.
That guy. He's all over the shop. Prolific goal scorer. And now it's time for another little feature we'll add just for the last couple of moments of the show. I'm looking forward to this. Oh yeah.
Reggae audio bed.
Bit of reggae.
Klaxon.
Yeah, that's right. For the non-league roundup. That's right. We're going to have this. This signifies that we're moving away from the Albion momentarily. Talk about our non-league teams here in Sussex. So, the non-league kicks off for some of our teams today. Lancing home to Loxwood at Culver Road, Shoreham at home to Little Common at Middle Road, Peacehaven and Telscombe are at home to Pagham at the Sports Park Arena, and Saltdean United will travel to Langley Wanderers. They're all in the SCL. Oh, I like the way it keeps pumping in and out. In the Southern Combination Football League. The Bostik Premier League kicks off next week, which includes only Worthing, Lewes, Whitehawk, Burgess Hill Town and Bognor Regis Town. Derbies galore in that league next year.
Yes, non-stop derbies pretty much.
There we are. That's a very quick non-league roundup.
Is that it?
That was it.
Oh.
We can't go into too much detail on our first show back. It's Albion-centric.
I was just getting into the reggae audio bed.
Yep. And now it's over. Just like that, it's over. Oh dear. Right,
surreal.
We're running out of time. We've got the fabulous Nick Colton with the 1979 show coming to follow us. Oh yes, thumbs up as they're setting up in the studio. Final thoughts. We've got loads more to preview for next week. The next Saturday we will be obviously gearing up towards the launch of the Premier League, which we already have kicked off. Obviously, Leicester Man United kicks off on Friday night.
Oh, we're doing that in the Premier League now as well as the Championship. Okay, yeah, sure, right.
So yeah, Friday night Premier League football.
So is it the Community Shield tomorrow?
Community Shield tomorrow, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. With the World Cup, it's thrown us all out of kilt, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't
don't know
believe
what's
it.
going on anymore.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Anything you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I'm just glad I've got another week to, because I did do a reasonable amount of preparation and research on our new signings. It's hard with players who aren't sort of, world names, because there isn't that much out there about them. So it gives me another week to see if I can discuss.
That's it. We'll look at our signings in depth. We'll give you the critical analysis, all you need to know. And we hope you enjoy the week. We hope you enjoy Pride if you're out celebrating in Brighton today.
Yep.
And
stay hydrated. Sunscreen.
Safety words from Leon Cox, as always.
Don't trust the dodgy dealers.
It's Dean Kilford and Leon Cox saying goodbye. See you same time, same place next week on
Bye.
BTN.